At first glance, it seemed like just another birthday portrait. A quiet moment. A simple image. A young royal smiling gently into the camera. But within hours, something unexpected happened. People didn't just see Princess Charlotte. They saw him. Not in a vague, passing resemblance, but in a way that felt almost uncanny. The same eyes. The same expression. Even the same quiet confidence that once defined a young prince growing up under the same global gaze. It wasn't just a sweet family moment anymore. It became a conversation. A comparison. And perhaps, a glimpse into the future. Because when millions of people around the world all notice the same thing at once, it stops being coincidence and starts becoming something more meaningful. So why did this particular portrait resonate so deeply? And what does it quietly reveal, not just about Princess Charlotte, but about the legacy she's growing into? Let's take a closer look. The image was released to celebrate Princess Charlotte's 11th birthday, a milestone that, in royal terms, marks a subtle transition. No longer a small child, but not yet stepping fully into public duty. Captured outdoors, the portrait feels natural, almost effortless. No elaborate staging. No overwhelming royal symbolism. Just Charlotte, relaxed, composed, and quietly self-assured. But almost immediately, reactions began pouring in. Not about the setting. Not about the outfit. But about who she looked like. William's double. The exact same smile. Like looking back in time. The comparisons were everywhere. And yet, this wasn't the first time royal watchers had noticed something familiar in Charlotte. But this time, it felt different. Stronger. More defined. Which raises two intriguing questions. Why now? And why does this resemblance seem to matter so much to people watching from the outside? Because sometimes, what we see in a photograph isn't just about appearance. Sometimes, it's about identity. There's something striking about the simplicity of the image. Charlotte isn't dressed in anything overly formal. There's no crown, no ceremonial detail. Instead, she appears grounded, comfortable in her own presence. And perhaps that's what draws people in first. But then, the recognition sets in. The tilt of the head. The shape of the eyes. That unmistakable expression, somewhere between curiosity and quiet confidence. It echoes something deeply familiar. Because for many, it's not just about resemblance. It's about memory. A memory of Prince William as a child, before the responsibilities, before the expectations, before the weight of the crown became visible. And suddenly, the portrait becomes something more than a birthday image. It becomes a bridge between generations. But why does that feel so powerful? The legacy of resemblance. Royal families have always carried a unique relationship with appearance. Faces become symbols. Expressions become recognizable across decades. And resemblance? It often feels like continuity, something reassuring in a constantly changing world. In Charlotte's case, the connection to her father feels particularly significant. Prince William himself grew up under intense public scrutiny. Every photograph, every gesture analyzed. And now, years later, that same attention is shifting gently, gradually, toward his daughter. But here's where it becomes interesting. Charlotte isn't just reflecting William's features. She seems to echo something deeper, his presence. That calmness. That subtle awareness of being seen. And yet, she carries it differently. More modern. More relaxed. Less burdened, at least for now. So is this simply genetics? Or is it something shaped over time? Unlike previous generations, Charlotte is growing up in a very different royal environment. Her parents have made deliberate choices. Prioritizing normalcy where possible, limiting excessive exposure, and allowing moments like this portrait to feel authentic rather than staged. And it shows. Because Charlotte doesn't appear overwhelmed by the attention. If anything, she seems at ease. But that raises another question. Is this confidence natural? Or is it something she's already learning quietly, gradually, from watching those around her? Prince William, after all, has spent decades navigating public life. And perhaps, without even realizing it, Charlotte is absorbing those lessons. Not through formal training, but through observation, through presence, through simply growing up in that environment. Which makes the resemblance feel even more layered. Because it's not just physical, it's behavioral. The internet can be unpredictable. Trends come and go. But certain moments cut through the noise. And this portrait was one of them. People didn't just scroll past. They paused. They commented. They shared. Why? Because it triggered something emotional. A sense of familiarity. A connection to the past. But also, curiosity about the future. What will Charlotte become? Will she follow in her father's footsteps? Will she take on a similar role or carve out something entirely her own? These questions don't have answers yet. But the portrait invites them. And that's part of its quiet power. There's also something subtly strategic about how this image was presented. Gone are the days when royal portraits felt distant and untouchable. Now, there's an emphasis on relatability. On warmth. On creating a sense of connection rather than hierarchy. And Charlotte embodies that shift. She represents a new generation, one that balances tradition with approachability. Where being royal doesn't mean being unreachable. It means being seen. But here's the contrast. While the presentation feels modern, the legacy behind it remains deeply traditional. And that tension between past and present is what makes moments like this so compelling. In royal families, inheritance isn't just about titles. It's about identity. About what gets passed down visibly and invisibly. Charlotte may not be the direct heir, but she is undeniably part of the future. And her presence, especially in moments like this, carries meaning. Because people don't just see her as an individual. They see her as part of a story that's still unfolding. And when she mirrors her father so clearly, it reinforces that sense of continuity. But also raises a subtle thought. Will she follow the same path? Or redefine it? A glimpse into personality. There's a quiet confidence in Charlotte's expression. Not overly posed. Not overly performative. Just present. And that simplicity speaks volumes. Because in a world where public figures are often curated and controlled, authenticity stands out. And Charlotte, in this moment, feels authentic. But is that by design? Or is it simply who she is becoming? Perhaps it's both. Before the portrait was released, expectations were likely simple. A sweet birthday photo. A brief moment of celebration. But what people saw instead was something layered. Something meaningful. Something that invited reflection. Because sometimes, the smallest details, like a familiar expression, can carry the biggest impact. And this was one of those moments. But beneath the admiration, beneath the warmth of public reaction, there's a quieter tension. Because resemblance, especially in a royal context, can be both a gift and a responsibility. To look like Prince William is to carry a visual connection to the future king. To be constantly compared, intentionally or not. And as Charlotte grows older, those comparisons may only become stronger. Will people begin to expect her to act like him? To carry the same demeanor? To represent the same values? And what happens if she doesn't? Because identity isn't inherited as easily as appearance. It's shaped, developed, chosen. And while the world may see echoes of William in Charlotte, she is still her own person. Still discovering who she is. Still navigating a life that, while privileged, is also uniquely complex. And that's where the real story lies. Not in how much she resembles her father, but in how she will eventually define herself beyond that resemblance. Because every generation of royals faces a moment where they step out of the shadow of expectation and into their own light. The question is, when that moment comes for Charlotte, what will we see? For now, though, the portrait remains what it was always meant to be: a celebration, a quiet pause in time. A moment that captures Charlotte exactly as she is, on the edge of something new, yet still grounded in the innocence of youth. And perhaps that's why it resonates so deeply. Because it reminds us that behind the titles, behind the legacy, behind the expectations, there's still a child growing up, learning, changing, becoming. Yes, she may resemble Prince William. Yes, she may carry elements of his presence. But she is also something entirely unique. A blend of history and possibility, of tradition and change. And maybe that's what people are truly responding to. Not just the familiarity, but the potential. Because in Charlotte, we don't just see the past reflected. We see the future beginning to take shape. What do you think when you see this portrait? Do you believe Princess Charlotte's resemblance to Prince William is just coincidence? Or does it feel like something more meaningful? And as she grows older, do you think she'll follow in his footsteps or create a path entirely her own? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.